Hello, and welcome to Phil Brown's Computer Networking Lab. You're watching the instructional video called Minimal Configuration of the Exchange Server. The main goal of this video will be to create two domains that are able to send emails back and forth to each other. This is completely in a lab environment, so we will not worry about setting up port forwarding rules for our firewalls. The construction is basically creating Active Directories for both domains and Exchange servers for both domains, and setting it up so the Exchange servers can connect to one another. I have already set up the DNS server in the Active Directory. I've also set up the Exchange server for both domains. Let's take a look at the configuration. Here we are on the server called Exchange 1. This server is in the alpha.com network. Let's open up the DNS manager so we can view its configuration. I'm going to take a look at the forward lookup zone for the alpha.com domain. Here we can see that the server is listed as Exchange 1, and it also has an alias of mail. I even set up a MX record so that other email servers will know how to contact this email server. In real life, the MX record will be either on the DNS server over the internet or in the demilitarized zone and not within the company itself. I also have a reverse DNS record for Exchange 1. Now let's take a look at the Active Directory users and computers. I've created an organizational unit called User Accounts, in which I have a number of users already set up in there. I can give any one of these mail accounts, which I'll do later on. Now we're looking at the server called Exchange 1 in the domain of Beta 1. Notice we called both Exchange servers Exchange 1. We could have given them any name, but I chose to call both of them Exchange 1, even though this is not necessary. Let's take a look at the forward lookup zone in the DNS manager. Here we can see that this one also has entries that I've created earlier. Exchange 1 has knowledge of the server known as Exchange 1, and it also has an alias called mail. And I set up the MX record so that outside email servers would know how to contact this email server. Let's take a look at the Active Directory users and computers. On this one, I also created the user account organizational unit. Here we have different users listed. So we can see that we have two domains. Each of them have their own Exchange server. Now we're back on Exchange 1 inside of the alpha domain. I'll open up the Internet Explorer so we can access the Exchange control panel. Oops, I made a mistake. I forgot to include the HTTPS at the end. There, that's better. The reason why it says it has a problem with the certificate is because this Exchange server is using a self-signed certificate. That's alright, this is only for demonstration purposes. I want to be careful to put in the ECP at the very end. We can see in the left pane, the two most important sections for us to configure is the recipient mailboxes and the mail flow. Let's add a new user to the mailbox recipient list. I'll choose Montgomery Scott and set up the mailbox so he can receive and send messages. We need to create a send connector in order to be able to send out emails. Since this will be going over the internet, I'll simply call the send connector internet. And I wanted to use MX records to resolve to other email addresses. I'll use a wildcard or star in order to make it the default for all domains. I have to select what server we're going to use for this particular connection. Here we created our send connector. We could make other changes in the left pane, but for right now this is fine for testing purposes. One option we can think about for even in the lab is to create the database on a different server. Here we are, back on the beta domain server known as Exchange 1. Let's open up an Internet Explorer so we can view the Exchange control panel. I'll log in as the administrator. Here we can see that the only one that has a mailbox is the administrator. Let's change that. I'll go to my list of users in Active Directory that do not already have mailboxes. And I'll choose William Riker as the person I want to give a mailbox to. There, William Riker is added to the list of users who have mailboxes. Now let me go to the mail flow so I can configure the send connector. I'm also going to name this send connector Internet. I could choose any name that I want, but that to me is the most descriptive name. I also wanted to use MX records as opposed to a smart host. Here I'll add a wildcard or star in order to define it as the default of any domain that does not already have a send connector devoted to it. And since this is the only server for the beta domain, my choice is very easy. There, our internet send connector has been created. Let's hop back to the alpha domain and send out an email message to this domain. Now we're back at the alpha domain. Let's open up the Outlook web app so we can send a message. Notice this time I'm using the extension of OWA for Outlook web app. The Internet Explorer still sees a problem with our self-signed certificate. That's okay. Here's the Outlook web app. Let's create a new mail. I'm going to send this email out to William Riker at beta.com. Let me also include the administrator. I just want to send a very simple message just to verify that this Exchange server can send and receive email messages. I'll click the send button. Okay, let's take a look at the sent items and see if the Outlook web app recognizes that this email was sent. There it goes. It says that it was sent to William Riker at beta.com. Let's hop over to beta.com and see if he received it. Okay, now we're back on beta 1. Let's take a look and see if Riker has received that email message that we sent. First, we'll need to log into Outlook web app. Okay, it automatically logged us in as administrator. We can see that it has the message that we sent to the administrator. Let's send a return reply message and see if the alpha.com domain is able to receive email messages. We can see that the sent items folder recognized that the email was sent. I'm going back to the alpha.com domain. Okay, we're back at the alpha.com domain. Let's see if the Outlook web app has received the email message from the beta.com domain. Yes, here it is. The administrator has received the message. What we have done here is the minimal amount of configuration in order to get the Exchange server to perform a simple email send and receive. You can use this experience as a starting point to build up your knowledge about how to configure the Exchange server. Knowledge of the implementation and configuration of Exchange server is an important tool for networking administrators. I hope this video has been informative and I thank you for viewing.